Oh, okay. Welcome to the edition of Hitting Buckets, our golf podcast that talks about the biggest stories in golf and try our best to give some winners out. I'm your co-host, as always, Scott Mater, and with me, Ryan Marchand. Ryan, how's it going?
Going good, Scott. Ready to talk another major championship.
Great. And that third person you see there is our guest. We brought on a guest for the first time ever on Hitting Buckets. It is John Hasselbauer, aka the PGA Tout, Twitter sensation for golf picks. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. What an honor to be the debut talent on the guest. That is exciting news. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you. So we're going to get right into it. Usually we do a new number of things, but we're going to focus just on the Open today. So we're going to lean into John's specialty. Before I throw it to him to get on the course, a little history. As Ryan and I started getting into the gambling game, golf really did a good thing getting back first COVID, and we got hooked on the playing. The good thing about John's articles, and you see the links there, my tears weren't even dry on Sunday, and I saw his Sunday night previews for the next course, so already on to the next week. So John, without further ado, I want to lean into you and let's go right into the course for the Open, the Royal St. George's. Tell us what you got.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of paper cuts turning the pages too early for me too. And I know John Deere Classic couldn't wait for that to be over so we could get into the Open Championship. It is the last of 6 major championships in this super season. So bittersweet that this will be the last major for really a long time. We've been spoiled this season with so many of them. This is the Open. We have not seen it since 2019 when Shane Lowry won at Portrush in his sort of Irish homecoming. This is in sort of the southernmost tip of England at Royal St. George's. We have not been here since 2011, which is kind of a long time for the US Open sort of rotation, or sorry, the Open Championship rotation as they go through their tried and true courses. We haven't seen this in a while. Last time we were here, Darren Clark won very surprisingly. I think he was over 200 to 1. And he edged off Dustin Johnson in that final pairing, as well as a charging Phil Mickelson, amongst others. So a really good tournament. I went back and watched kind of that final round on YouTube, and definitely encourage anybody who's kind of researching to kind of start there, because the course has not changed that much over the last 10 years since they last had it there. They were dealing with a lot of inclement weather and just, varying elements that, as far as the forecast goes right now, it seems will be less a factor. And the less that weather is kind of coming into play at an Open Championship, the more scoreable it's going to be. This is historically one of the more difficult courses in the rotation at Open Championships. A lot of that has been due to the weather, I believe, since this is so close to the shoreline. And I wouldn't expect this to be, completely free of any elements. Again, it's right on the water. Things can change on a dime. You can get big gusts at any moment. It's a links course, so there's not really trees defending you from winds or even the slightest of breezes. You're going to feel them. So you need players that are going to be able to play well in difficult conditions, namely in high winds. Maybe it gets ugly with some rain, remains to be seen. But it's a completely different test than anything we're going to see on the PGA Tour. I'm not really modeling anything this week. It's a lot of gut feels. It's a lot of looking at success on links courses on the Euro Tour or just past Open Championships, and then just taking guys who are kind of top class players playing in their best form, leading in and last 36 rounds or so.
Right on, John. I know it's hard to comp this to anything that we normally see on tour. Is there any course that would closely resemble this that we can pull any data from, do you think?
Anything that you would do, I would say it comes with a caveat. There's probably bits and pieces of different courses that you can say, like maybe you want to look at how people putted at the Ocean course, because that was a very wind affected green. I wouldn't take all of the Ocean course at Kiowa because it was such a gargantuan course. It's like 800 yards longer than this one's going to be. So that's not a perfect comp, but it is a wind affected sort of link style course if you want to go that route. Erin Hills is another one that's sort of a link style that was supposed to be very windy and actually kind of cooled down. And Brooks really dominated that course without the weather being a factor. So maybe that's an angle you could take this time around. Chambers Bay is an okay comp as a course that's sort of on the coast and gets very windy. It can get rainy and ugly. So those are sort of decent comps. Are all sort of U.S. Open venues on stateside or PGA Championship at Kiowa. But anything outside of a major, I wouldn't really look too deep into it because the scoring is going to be very difficult. And outside of majors, we really don't see single-digit winning scores on the regular PGA Tour.
Right on. Like Scott alluded to, we usually the first read we do when we're preparing our picks is always your article on Sunday. Like you said, it's kind of hard to go through the metrics and everything that you normally do and what kind of player you're looking at. But can you give us any idea what your early leans are in terms of players this week?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because my early with a major, especially like this, your early leans can start 6 months ago, right? Because the odds are always there. So I was leaning to Louis Oosthuizen, pretty much since the PGA Championship. It's well known that this is the only major that he's kind of converted at, and he won here in 2010 before he really came onto the scene. It was a surprise. I think he was like 300 to 1. And he's had a mixed bag of results at Open Championships since then, but this year has been such a renaissance for him. He's had runner-ups in the last 2 major championships, and he is sort of like a Brooks Koepka light who just always seems to be there in major championships. And he gets it done with his putter, which is always going to be important here. Does sort of put an emphasis on good short game at a difficult open links course. And he's the type of guy that likes to kind of hit that lower ball flight and roll it up onto a flatter green. So that's definitely going to play a big part in this course. I like Louis a lot. I bet him 44 to 1 as an outright. I think there's still a couple books that have kept that there, but for the most part, he's kind of that like 25, 28 to 1 range now. Not the guy that most people would probably jump to as an outright because he doesn't really convert his wins. But you know what? If he's in the final pairing on Sunday, I won't be hesitant to hedge him if there's somebody else there pressing. So that's kind of my philosophy on betting those non-winners. So Louis is a guy I like a lot this week. I may end up going with him as a one and done just because I'm kind of out of bullets at the top of the board. But I like him. And then 2 other guys I bet this week are Jordan Spieth and Dustin Johnson, both right in that like 20 to 1 range. Jordan Spieth is a very popular pick this week. He always plays well on links courses. He seems to be getting everything clicking finally for the first time since like 2017. He actually has the game back with him. He's a wizard with a short game. He's going to get himself into trouble and get himself out of trouble. He's no stranger to that. And it's really just a test of patience at a course like this over 4 rounds. So he's used to scrambling out of crazy situations. I think other people who don't have that links experience might get a little flustered and frustrated early. But he knows it's a 4-day tournament. You don't have to go super low to win it. So I do like Jordan Spieth in a situation like that. And Dustin Johnson is a guy who I keep trying to talk this guy up on Twitter and everything. And the more I keep talking about him, the more his odds keep getting better and better somehow. So nobody's listening to me, but he was 11 to 1 on DraftKings on like Sunday morning. And he's now 22 and a half to 1. I bet him at 20 to 1, I think. But he keeps going in that other direction. I don't really understand it. As I was saying before, the last time we were at Royal St. George's was 2011, and he finished runner-up. It's actually the favorite to win that going into Sunday, and yet just had a little bit of an ugly couple blow-up holes in there. That sort of happens at Open Championships. But he's actually returned to being the world number 1 due to some technicality with the way that system works. John Rahm was world number one for like 2 weeks, took it away from him. Now Dustin Johnson is back to being the world number one, coming to a course where he has better history than anybody else in this field, besides Darren Clark. And his Open Championship history has been mixed, but he has other top 10, top 15 finishes in this style of event, and he has a lot of tricks in his bag that he can go to. It's a course that you're going to have to hit some cut shots, some draw shots, roll up some shots, hit some punches, and all that. And very few players are more creative with their shot making than Dustin Johnson. So just for that raw ability, the fact he's going overlooked, his odds are slipping. I think he's a really intriguing play this week.
So I must say, I think Louis O made it. I threw out, let's talk about top dogs off the hop, and you went right to him first. So congrats to Louis O. If anything else, you talked about him above DJ, above Brooks, and the guy I want to talk about right now quickly. I want to talk about John Rahm because he is the favorite, and he's quite the heavy favorite. Like, we looked at the rest of the majors this year, there's kind of a group of them clumped in around the low teens, somewhere around the 10. And now I'm looking, and Rahm's like 8-1, and the next closest is somewhere in 18. But honestly, I'm going to throw it to both you guys. I think he's earned it with what he did at the Memorial, US Open, and he played perfectly at Scottish. Didn't win because it's hard to win that many in a row, but he played just well enough to know he's still there. So we have any issues with Rahm being the heavy favorite this week in a couple days?
I mean, I totally understand it. I'm to be honest, I'm worried that we're in this era of Rahm just taking over right now, the way he's playing. I kind of enjoy that there's so many good players involved every week, but he's the one guy that when I see him at the top of the board or in the mix on even a few shots back on a Sunday, I'm always nervous if I don't have anything on him. It's hard to bet a guy at 8-1 for sure. But I don't get how he goes to the Scottish, plays fairly well, finishes fairly well, and still loses his top spot to DJ, who didn't even play. But, like you said, there's some flaws in that system. But I won't be on Rahm this week just because the number's way too low. But I don't know. What do you think about that, John?
Yeah, I think it's the same number he was at the US Open. And at the US Open, I thought about it for a second, which is crazy because it does feel like an unbettable number, but it made a lot of sense at the US Open. It fit his game. He's a long hitter. He hits a straight ball, impeccable Torrey Pines history. He had his first career win there. He always plays well at Torrey Pines, so he had that going for him. Just had this sort of game that fit a US Open style. I know he has a good links course history. He's obviously European. He's familiar with links courses and all of that. Has all the tricks in the bag as well. But I'm less bullish on him at this number this time around than I was before. He's never finished top 10 at the Open. He has an 11th place finish last time it was played in 2019. But before that, it was miscut 44-59. So for somebody who is the prohibitive favorite, that's a little bit of a flag to me. And before he really closed the deal at the US Open, even if you want to say he basically won the Memorial, he wasn't a world beater on the tour. He was kind of putting 3 good rounds together and then couldn't make it 4 good rounds. So this kind of run that he's on of dominance is still kind of fresh, and he hasn't really sustained it long enough for me to say it's John Rahm's tournament to lose. I'm happy that he's kind of priced this way. I don't disagree with him being the odds-on favorite. I think that's appropriate. But with his odds being where they are, it opens up a lot of value for the rest of the board. So I won't be betting that number. I probably won't play him in DFS either. There's a lot of randomness in this tournament. You can hit a good tee shot right in the middle of the fairway, catch the wrong end of an undulated slope, and find a pot bunker. Right. So you might just get bad breaks, play great golf, and not be rewarded for it. So that's not the type of place I want to pay up for the best golfer in the field.
Jeez. You're almost convincing me not to play Rahm in my one and done because I have him saved up, and I'm like, it's a no-brainer. He's like 15% availability left. I feel it's a good time to use him.
I wouldn't talk you out of that. I was fortunate enough to play him at the US Open, so I don't have to
Well,
consider that anymore, but you've got him. So I'd say probably smart to use them.
I want to hit the top of the board quickly because I find it more fun to talk about some of our longer shots. But first thing I want to get off, everything on my card is in pencil right now. I'm taking my time. I got lots of work, but I do have one thing I did get done. And I'm actually shocked because I hammered Morikawa at 33-1, thinking I'm smart. And I'm looking right now and he's in the 40s. I can't believe it. But I guess there was like I looked at Morikawa's auto bet 30 or above, and now I see him 40. I just can't believe that number. But he's the only guy I have in stone right now. And we've avoided you this long, Ryan. I see the t-shirt. So tell me why you're betting Brooks.
Yeah, like you said, I got my shirt on. I usually sip on local craft beers during this. I'm drinking some Kepkas here tonight.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, I saw this stat Justin Ray posted on Twitter. It's a best combined scores to par in major since 2016. Dustin Johnson was minus 21. Xander Schauffele was minus 21. Brooks Koepka was minus 84. That's just unreal. It's well documented. He just has a different gear when it comes to the major events. And so far this year, he was runner up at the PGA. I still can't believe he lost that. T4 at the US Open. And a lot of the casual fans might not even know that he cut his teeth over here on the Euro Tour, on the Challenge Tour in Europe. So he's used to these conditions. He's played links golf. I know the knee's been an issue this year, but he was runner up at the PGA 2 months ago with that same knee, and he's had 2 months to build that strength up. So I don't know. I don't see a way he's not involved come Sunday this weekend.
Yeah, I got nothing against Brooks, and I definitely he's the one guy that scares me the most on this board. I might even say not having Brooks scares me more than not having Rahm, because I can see Rahm running hot and cold, but Brooks is so stoic out there and so proven in any major you throw him in to do well. You could even argue from the knee standpoint that playing a extremely flat and not very long links course is good on the knee. As opposed to, say, Augusta, which is super long and sloped, and he could hardly walk off the course by the end of it where he missed the cut. So even from a health standpoint, I think this stacks up really well for him. He has great links history. He might actually have the best links history in this field, which you wouldn't think of for an American like him. But as you said, got started on the Champions Tour and has plenty of familiarity with links courses like this.
Okay, so let's just hit on them quick because it would be disrespectful if we didn't. Do you have any thoughts on Rory or JT? I want to move down the board and start finding some diamonds in the rough, but let's think. Do we like Rory this week? Because I'm a little just missed the cut at the Scottish. Like, what's going on there?
I mean, it's it's so hard. I always want, and I always think he's going to do good over here. I played him at the Irish. I played him at the Scottish. I think I'm going to hold off. I don't know. It's so hard. I'm going to hold off, I think, with Rory this week, just because I got too many irons in the fire up at the top of the board, I think, right now. With JT, you like seeing the form that he came into last week. But still, I think it was his first top 10 in months. So it's hard to, I don't know. It's hard to see him continuing that over on the British Open too. The number's good. I usually have a rule with those guys: when they're over 20, you want to play them, but everyone's around there right now, which, like John said, with Rahm's number so low, it gives everyone a boost, right? So it's hard to play all these guys. I think I'm going to be off those two.
Yeah, I don't have very strong feelings on either, to be honest. I prefer DJ and Spieth in that range, even Brooks in that range. So I'm not like hard fading those two guys, but I don't feel strongly enough.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's go to the more interesting stuff. Let's go to breakthroughs. From what I was reading, the Open isn't necessarily the best spot for these young guys with little experience to break through, but a couple of my favorite guys, Victor Hovland is around. Ryan, I know your guy's there. We haven't talked about him yet, breaking through. We got Cantley, Hatton, Fleetwood. What do we like for guys breaking through and winning their first major? I like Hovland. I'm just going to throw it out there. He's fresh off a win. He's been competing all year, couple wins last year. He needs a big win on a big stage. So Hovland's my guy, but that's a total field pick here at the Open. But what do you guys think for breaking through and winning their first major?
Oh, for me, first of all, Hovland's going to stay out of those pot bunkers or he's going to catch some sand in the eye there. But for me, it's I got two guys that I always play at the majors. I already talked about Brooks. The other guy is Xander. He just another one of those guys. He just always performs. He's always on the cusp of winning one of these things. He's got 9 top 10 finishes and 17 major starts now. I was super all in for the home game U.S. Open that Rom spoiled for him, but I just really love how the game's coming together right now. I love how he did at the Scottish. He gained strokes both off the tee and on approach. It looks like he retired the arm lock going into the weekend there. So I didn't see a lot of it on the weekend, but it looks like he went back to the left-hand low that he was putting really well with anyway. On Saturday. So Saturday and Sunday, he gained almost 3 strokes putting over the weekend. So of the American contingent that's over here right now, he's only behind Brooks, Jordan, and surprisingly Finau in strokes gained total on links courses. So the man just got married. He's feeling good. He's playing good. Let's go. Let's get Xander. Let's get Xander his first major.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a sensible play for sure. I think Tyrrell Hatton is a guy that has my attention. Don't have room for him on my card. Kind of regrettably looking back at it, there were some good like numbers up to 50 on him that in hindsight that would have been an easy one to pull the trigger on. But really good links course player, even if the numbers don't necessarily back it from like a strokes gain perspective. But he's always had good finishes in this European Tour Links Championship. Name's escaping me, but they basically play on a rotating set of courses that would otherwise host the Open Championships, and the most recent one was played at St. Andrews, and they rotate that way. So he's had several top 10 finishes on the European Tour. He's obviously English, so he's familiar with Link's style, and he's a ball striker, great approach player, crafty around the green. So fits that profile. Is it kind of in that almost elite tier of players around the world where you almost expect him to have had a major championship at this point. And this seems like a good spot for him. The numbers, the results haven't been dazzling in 2021, but he's one of those guys again who's had maybe 3 really good rounds and 1 kind of blow up round that's prevented him. So if he just gets 4 good rounds together, I think he could be dangerous this week.
Okay, you know what's funny? Ryan and I were talking earlier today, and I was like, I'm not going to miss talking about this guy when we talk about the big guys, but he's going to fit into can they win their second major this week? We skipped over Bryson. He was supposed to be the big story and talk about the new caddy and can this kind of golf fit his game? I'm saying no. It's a complete fade for me. I'm not touching Bryson. I want to make the point that I think his odds in majors this year were in the teens every time, and now he's looking into the mid 30s. I'm still not enticed. Can you guys convince me otherwise? But Bryson as a guy to win a second, or do you got a better name for me? Maybe you mentioned Louis O, so let's skip over him. We got another guy better than Bryson, or is Bryson in play this week?
For me, I'm not going near that. I just don't like the volatility of his game right now. The new caddy. I read something about him going from playing the match at such a high elevation and different levels, and then going over to this kind of course might mess with the fellas. So for me, the guy that I'm leaning towards at a big number, 90 to 1, is Jason Day to get his second major. I mean, it's always risky playing him, but the number's big enough. I think it's worth the risk right now. His game just seems to be rounding out into form. He's coming off a T14 and a T10 in his last 2 starts. He came close to winning the British back at St. Andrews, but he came, I think it was like a stroke short of a playoff, and Zach Johnson went on to win that year. So if he can find a bit of the short game that made him great before, if he can find a little bit of that this weekend, maybe he'll have a chance.
Second major is a sort of a tricky one. It's definitely not Bryson for me. My favorite Bryson bet this week is Bryson to miss the cut.
You're still
You
mad
can
at
probably
the
find that.
Rocket though.
Oh yeah. Well, yes, I am a little spiteful of Bryson. That's definitely true. I am one to hold a grudge for a couple weeks. But yeah, as you said, the caddy thing is concerning. Links golf is the opposite of what you want as a bomber. If you throw that ball in the air and let the wind take it, who knows where you're going to end up. And there's plenty of fescue out there that he's going to find a lot of out of bounds. The form is questionable, and he's never really had a good finish in an Open Championship. So it's an unbettable. Like he's off the list for me. I don't know what his number would have to drop to for me to even consider it. I'm just not betting him, and I think he's going to struggle to make the cut. Quite honestly, if I was to pick one guy as maybe a sneaky contender for a second major, I don't like Gary Woodland. He won on a shorter, coastal, windy, weather-impacted Pebble Beach in 2019. Is able to kind of dial that ball flight down, which I think is interesting. I bet him as a future at the beginning of the year because I thought he'd come back a little healthier, and he was definitely slow out the gates, but then he showed some signs of life. So I always root for Gary Woodland. I hit on him when he won the U.S. Open. So he's kind of a guilty pleasure bet for me, but I'd love to see him win another one.
I think a guy I didn't want us to gloss over for second win because I think I might play him. I'm not sure, but I played him at the U.S. Open and he disappointed. But Patrick Reed, I just feel like he has the 11th, I believe, the last time he played the Open. He likes to play overseas. He's got that scrambling game. I feel like he can figure out those greens and regulation. He's always going to find a way to make par. I don't like him, but 40-1, he's just, I'm staring him down. I feel like I might play Pat Reed. You guys just want to quickly say yes or no on Pat Reed, and then Ryan?
It's gonna be a no for me, dog.
No.
I would say the uglier the conditions, the worse the scoring is going to be, the better it plays out for Patrick Reed.
Okay, so all right, so he's still in play. Okay, let's give some Europeans, Euro Tour guys some love here because we're over on their side of the pond here. It's got to be a guy like Darren Clark winning, Ben Curtis winning out of nowhere here, but more the Darren Clark theme here. I hope you know where I'm going here. Lee Westwood, it's time. It's time to the soccer team couldn't bring it home. It's time for Lee Westwood to bring this one home, get his first major. Am I crazy?
I mean, I could see he had a really good run there. I think it was around the Florida swing this year already. So maybe coming home is something that will spark his game again. I could see him making a run. I'd like to see Ian Poulter make a run. He had a really good tournament last week. But the guy I'm going to bet is, like you said, I want to have a little bit of English flavor. So I'm going to bet Paul Casey, I think. I mean, he's as far from a Euro player as you can get, really, I guess. He hasn't performed well at all for the British Opens. I think he's got two top 10 performances and 17 trips here. So on the flip side, he's had 3 top 10 finishes in the other last 6 majors. So he's having a great year, really. He already won once on this side of the pond. And I just think he's one of those really great players that's only missing the major win, and he's not getting any younger. I like the current form. So I think he's got a shot this week to make a little run.
Yeah, I like that. I think Lee Westwood is a guy I'd love to see him win. So even if I don't have any action on him, if he wins, like that'd be nice to see. And experience, kind of trending in the right direction, has a win within the last 2 seasons, which is usually a good indicator. So a lot of signs pointing his way. I definitely like the Lee Westwood call. Guy for me on the Euro Tour that I keep going back to is Victor Perez. Not the kind of wily veteran Euro kind of guy. He's a Frenchman, but he won that event I was talking about at St. Andrews, it's actually the most recently played links event. If you ignore the Scottish Open, it was played a month after the last Open Championship was played. And it was a good field Victor Perez beat there. He beat the likes of like Tommy Fleetwood and Tony Finau, who were kind of charging at him in that event. So I like that he can get it done on a links course, which is few and far between if you look at this field just from an experience standpoint. And he looked really impressive at the Players, which has a lot of differences to this course, but it is a little shorter, kind of a shot maker's course. And then the WGC match play, he also got all the way to the consolation round of that. So he looked great against the world's best there. He's a good iron player. The rest of the game kind of comes and goes, but he's a long shot. He's like 200 to 1 this week. This event has proven that 200 to 1 plus guys can win it. So I threw a few bucks on him at that price. I think it's worth the gamble.
Perfect. Just in case we are running short, John, thanks for coming on. We could get cut off here, but let's on the way out on our little sayonara good night. We're going to throw quick bombs on the way out. And this time flew. A few guys left out. Sorry, Cam. Sorry, Leash, my Aussie boys. But let's hit a bomb on the way out. I promised I'd talk about him to my family. But my bomb is Mr. Phil Mickelson. He almost did it 10 years ago. He's doing it. I have him at 91 right now. So Phil, he's my bomb. Quickly, guys, who do you got your goodbye bomb? And then we're going to have to cut this short here.
For me, it's Keegan Bradley, 161. Great year he's having ball striking. I bet him a few times. So I know enough that I'm a better putter than him because he can't close it out. But he did win a major in Texas and dealt with some crazy wins there. So I like the number and I like his chances.
I guess I kind of double dip with my Euro because I definitely don't have a bomb longer than 200 to 1 Victor Perez. But another guy that I like, Joaquin Niemann at 80 to 1. I think one of you guys is also on him. A guy who can control the ball flighting, looked really good last we saw him. Thankfully, he didn't win. Like Cam Davis could bring that one home at the Rocket Mortgage, but he's trending in the right direction. Young guy, not a lot of experience, but has played a few rounds on the Euro Tour. Should be somewhat confident on the links course and pretty good odds for one of the better talents of the game, I think.
Nice. Well, John, thanks for coming on. Everyone who follows us, we're going to have our picks up on Twitter this week when we finalize them. Follow John at PGA Tout on Twitter. Some of the best material you can get. Best of luck, everyone, and I hope everyone enjoys the Open. See you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks,
for having
Sean.
me.